the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc. He's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government with a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other. He's Sean Thompson, and this is the Sean Thompson Show.
Proud to be joined by Dr. Helmut Sterz, who has joined us from France, and I appreciate you taking the time. I truly do. I know how busy you are, but I also know how important this book is. I think it's exactly what people need to know about so that they understand how long you've been fighting for the right side of things. And when I say that, I mean the advancement of science since 1974. It's really quite an impressive career.
Yeah, thanks very much for this. I'm certainly one amongst many people who are fighting for the truth on the scientific side, and especially in the context of this pandemic. So in the United States, there are very, very many extremely good people who did the same thing and who have been suffering a lot by telling the truth. So I've only suffered from the different countermeasures, but I was not vaccinated, and so I got through it without any lesions.
Yes, I join you in that, but I love the title of the book, The Vaccine Mafia. And you write it from a position that people need to understand. Since 1974, you've dedicated yourself to science, and at the end of your career, you were Pfizer's former chief of toxicology for France and England. So you've worked from 1974, and the reason I keep focusing on that, the mores of integrity and truth were completely different when you started your career to when you ended it. And I love the fact that you incorporated this into a title, because it really is a mafia of sorts. It's absolutely a mafia, from the bastardized facts to the ultimate goal, which appears to be the same goal as all mafias: money and the absence of ramifications of how you got it.
That's correct. But we have to differentiate a little bit what we mean with mafia. I'm not talking about the pharmaceutical industry alone. They are just a little piece in this mafia, and they serve the big picture. But I would not say that the heads of the pharmaceutical company Pfizer is the boss of the mafia. Certainly not.
No, in fact, it's funny. I'm from a little Italian neighborhood outside of Chicago, and my audience knows I refer to only one mafia, the true mafia. When I talk of mafia, I talk of government. Mafia is not two Italian guys talking about a line on sports games or loaning money to people who can't get loans. Mafia, to me, is government that not only suffers no consequences, but at the end gets a pension for the ultimate insult on the Sunday of who the slaves are in our society. And it's been a slow transition in America. But this could have never happened without the capitulation, the cooperation, and even, in fact, some of the organization of government. Could it?
Yes, that's absolutely true. And all sorts of the part of the government or the structure of the government. I mean, we shouldn't forget about the military intelligence agencies and the agencies who have to evaluate a new vaccine before they give it the blessing to go to the market. So there is a very complex network on the side of government which has allowed this mafia piece of impact on the health of the people.
It's interesting because Americans take for granted that there is such a thing of government, rather than the fact there are only people with job titles and power that we give them. And there's a certain sense of, oh, it's the government. Oh, it's a scientist. Oh, it's a doctor. So me interviewing you now is perfect, because it's a scandal to the naive what happened with Dr. Fauci. It's a scandal to the naive what happened with the NIH and the collusion. But to the people who were always suspicious, this is just validation. I view your book timing as perfect, as your accusations are validated. How do you view it?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm afraid that the games they are playing now with Fauci this again is he has become, after having been the hero, he's now the scapegoat in order to deviate the view on the real responsible people.
You know, Doctor, as somebody who grew up in a rougher neighborhood and without a lot of money, I always aspired to have money. So I would try to put myself in positions to make money. But I believed in capitalism. It wasn't until I was young and aware and learning that there's a vast difference between corporatism and capitalism. And corporatism can only thrive where the governments are corrupted. And when you step back and you look at this throughout your career, this is not Fauci's first merry-go-round with scandal, with fraud, with drugs that lead to fraud. In fact, if you looked at the fact that this man was hired in 1968 for the government, and you look at the massive uptick in vaccine mandates, vaccine schedules, and the trauma and the census of what has happened to our children and the uptick in autism and various different side effects, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think it's very orchestrated. And if you look and step back, who's really been the beneficiary of all of these problems and all of this? Both government and pharmaceutical companies. So this is just the latest scandal. But really, his career in this time frame, from when you were starting out to now, it's very scandalous, isn't it?
That's correct. And let's not forget about all those who make their money by investing into, for instance, the pharmaceutical industry, because without their investments, the pharmaceutical industry would not be able to survive. The pharmaceutical industry deeply depends on the Wall Street situation. And I remember very well that we were told all the time, we have to make sure that the shareholder value keeps up. If not, if the stocks go down, the company risks to be taken over by somebody else. So the pharmaceutical industry is certainly not an industry that serves exclusively health of the people. They are there in order to make money, and for that, the shareholders and the investors must be satisfied.
In fact, if you and I were investors, and we were positioned with a prospectus, and Pfizer came to us, and they said, I have this vaccine that will cure all the ills, all the health problems, from the time someone is a baby to the time they eventually pass away in 100 years. We want your money. But we also have this other investment. And this other investment is a vaccine or an injection that will keep people just sick enough to constantly need more of our product. As investors, we would be fools to invest in Prospectus A when Prospectus B guarantees us a tremendous amount of returns. So when you step back and look at this outside of your scientific knowledge, but just as a person, that would appear to be exactly what has happened from 1968 to today. That the vaccines, in fact, haven't increased any quality of life or any real health. What they've done is turn tremendous amounts, hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people into constant patients, haven't they?
I completely agree with you. And if you want to make money by investing, then obviously you will jump on the second opportunity. But that would not be mine, because I was trained and I'm willing to help. And the pharmaceutical industry is not there in order to make people very healthy, because then they would just go bankrupt.
And it's a fascinating reality to see what we were forced to take when the vaccine for COVID came out. In fact, it was a scandal in America. I'm sure it was a scandal in Europe. When they would send out the vaccines and their warning label would be blank. I remember watching nurses across the country say, I've never seen anything like this. It was never tested. Only the European Parliament was able to get Pfizer executives to admit they had never really tested it. They had no idea what they were releasing on mankind, did they?
Yes. They did just a couple of fig leaf studies in the area of toxicology. That's my interest. But this was not in order to prove the safety of these compounds. It was in order to present something to the authorities so that the authorities could close both eyes and let these products go to the market, even if an EUA is not a market authorization. But as the PrEP Act is still valid until 2029, this will stay, and therefore, yes, it's a big scandal. And well, there were many people, and I belong to them, that from the very beginning felt that there was something really wrong. But nobody wanted to listen. Even my wife, I told her every day, don't get vaccinated. And she wanted to have it because she wanted to be able to embrace her little children. And that's absolutely understandable. But the people just cut off their brain.
Well, that's the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest offense in this whole thing. They tapped into the good nature of good people who wanted to do the good thing as they were told by the supposed experts. That is the act of treason to mankind that I cannot forgive, because you're somebody who has studied this, and you came on very, very early and said this is not good. I have had the pleasure, thanks to this wonderful opportunity, this job I have, to talk to Robert Malone, who holds a patent in one of the delivery systems. He felt the exact same way. And you see so many good people who were involved in the industry who wanted it to stop. But like every swindler and every con artist, if you could tap that need of the good person, of the righteous person, well, now it doesn't matter who is disgruntled, who speaks up against it. You have told people in order to hug your grandchildren, you must poison yourself, in essence. And now that this comes out, you know, you also weave in and out between veterinary with animals and people, and you're a true scientist from 1974. When you look at this, what is the proper way to correct this, in your opinion? Because, you know, you'll have to forgive me. I'm one of those street guys. I'm one of those guys that during the time of World War II, I would have been looking for the flagpole for Mussolini. I'm not a man of letters. But what is your answer when you look back at this? How we could prevent and never, ever allow this to happen, and in the same sense, punish these players who knowingly and willingly poisoned mankind?
Well, I fear that these people who have put this on us, they have very much power, and therefore it is absolutely necessary that we wake up the population. And my fear is that most of the people just do not want to dive back into this water. They say it's over, let's forget about it. And without the support of the people, it will not be possible to have a real appraisal of the COVID policies and the politics and the crimes. So if we cannot get the people behind us, then it will be very difficult, and especially I see it almost every day in Europe and also in the United States. It's a game. They are playing games with us. Look at the question of Fauci at the Parliament and saying 120 times, "I don't respond," etc. This is just. I mean, I have no words for that. And the games between Trump and Kennedy. The one says, "I want to stop the PrEP Act," but nobody stops the PrEP Act, which is the original sin. And Trump says, "Well, Kennedy doesn't do enough in order to look into autism and vaccination." So they are playing balls, and nothing happens. So without the people behind us, it will not be possible. We can have 1,000 experts who are saying all of this is big crime, as, for instance, Dr. McCullough does every day. It will not be enough. It will not be enough if 1 million people bought my book because they will read it and will forget it.
Well, it's interesting. I will say I do believe that the skepticism that this has caused has changed the trajectory of the course of not just politics in America, but in the trust factor of citizens. And what's fascinating to me, I'm not an educated person in the realm of the people who sold this were. I'm not a doctor of sorts. I'm not in circles of think tanks. But what I will say is among the people who listen to my show and the people who I've been lucky enough to interact with, who are some of those people, who are on boards, they understand something that I think the government in America, or from what I can ascertain, the European government does not understand. The kids of our kids will never believe a word that comes out of the mouth of anyone that works for the government. Americans have a unique ability to be anarchists because they are born of anarchists. They subscribe, particularly in the southern states where I now live, to a different mindset of what government is. And it used to be, in all areas in America, government, that's where the moron went to go work in our society, who couldn't get a job. He went to go work for the government. So that generation pretty much is my generation. And all of a sudden, these younger kids were taught to bend knee to somebody who called themselves an expert. But I believe what this atrocity is, what the result is, and the fact that I believe that the vaccine will prove to have killed more people than COVID, which also was created by the government, as the documentation shows. I think this is the beginning of people not trusting government. How do you see it?
Yeah, it's absolutely true that the trust is gone. But the other side has enormous possibilities to take us back into a situation where by fear-mongering and by punishment, they will convince a lot of people to obey. Because I believe that COVID-19 was an exercise in order to test whether mankind was obeying, and most of the people obeyed. Now, the next time they will be probably less, but it's not excluded that a similar situation may happen, and by force and brutality, the people will just give in. And how would you interpret the situation where there are plenty of new vaccines based on the messenger RNA technology that are in the pipelines and are getting approval? And it can only be possible if the people will join in this game.
I think you're going to have a tremendous pushback by people who were expected to follow rules that will reject the rules, especially when it comes to the anything to do with the pharmaceutical arena or health in general. I've seen it since the backdoor nationalization of our health care. Obamacare spurred so many hundreds of millions of Americans. It started a movement here called the Tea Party movement. I'm sure you heard of it. And what happened is those people that were sent to Washington to change things became part of the problem. There's a new movement afoot. You could feel it here. And what I think is people will do what I personally do. I have not been to a doctor in my adult life, and I will never go again unless of an emergency or a tragedy. But what a doctor says to me at this point, I truly discount. I've had Dr. McCullough on. I love those organizations. Those organizations have tremendous amount of support because they're preaching things that we were told by our grandparents. Organics, healthy products. I think the pharmaceutical company, as a former person who paid attention to the economy very well, I would short every pharmaceutical stock. I would short every one of them. I would not hold any of their stock. I think that people, whether they have the courage to say it like you and I are doing, the courage to write it like you did, I think the average American rejects the pharmaceutical company and understands the bastardization of it. And I say this because when Klaus Schwab and that whole movement started with that whole control of the collective, and in our little urban areas that we now see, the rise of the repulsive or the rise of the communists, they're being rejected by the mass, 85% of Americans. I think the rejection of fascism is bigger than they want you to believe. I'm curious to know what it is like in Europe. Have they rejected the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization? Because you guys also put a tremendous push against it. Granted, you were few, but it still was there. I think that is much bigger than the powers that be in propaganda wants us to believe.
Okay. I think there is a big difference between the United States and Europe. the people in the United States are probably more able to resist and to start with a revolution. Here in Europe, we currently have very different problems. This mass migration that we are living, and the fact that our states have become overwhelmed by foreigners who are not very productive, who are more or less profiting from the system. This is intriguing, and this is putting a lot of anxiety into the population. My feeling here in France and also in Germany, the people believe that COVID is over, let's forget about it, and let's concentrate on our private life, which is, to some extent, also resistance, but it's not open. It's just, leave me alone. Yes. I want to live with a family.
See, that's the problem with the decent mindset of somebody who embraces the Enlightenment and wants to be free. They're hard to organize. But one thing that happened in America, the beauty of federalism is, during this most trying time, in real time, the governor that succeeded the best at pushing back was a guy by the name of Ron DeSantis, which is in the state I now live, in Florida. I believe, and here will be the test if I'm right or wrong. I believe that the next runaway candidate for nominee to be president will be Ron DeSantis, and he will run on correcting where Donald Trump made mistakes and implementing where Donald Trump had successes. He is the perfect person to push back against the Leviathan, as I refer to it. Some call it Washington, D.C., but the collective government in general. So if I'm right, Ron DeSantis will be the nominee, and you will give me a signed copy of Vaccine Mafia. And when the check comes for our steak dinner, if we ever get to share it, you'll pick it up. If I'm wrong, I'll pick it up. And the good news is I will bring a cigar. I don't know if you smoke or not, but to me, a cigar is the greatest example of pushing off government tyranny. What do you think?
I only smoke cigars once I'm under alcohol. But I would love to smoke a cigar with you, because only one will not kill me. But I know that I will have a headache afterwards. But it will be a pleasure to do it with you.
We could blame it on the booze, but I have the luxury of having a copy of your book, of which I got 2 days ago. I'm halfway through it. The book Vaccine Mafia is fantastic, and for you to write it, you remind me of the greatest compliment you could ever have in my neighborhood was, I don't know who is more proud of him, his parents or his children, but I love what you did, and I love that you had the courage to do it, because we're all very proud of you. This is exactly what was needed. Somebody from the inside. It's really more of an indictment than it is a book. You're more of a whistleblower than you are a willing author, and I love the fact that you did it from experience and what you've seen over the course of many decades. Thank you so much, Dr. Helmut Sterz. Thank you.
That's very kind. But I can tell you, my wife is also very proud of me now, after having gotten all these injections, because she suffered from the injections, and she has understood what was going wrong. And now she is very proud, and also my family, they now accept what I have written, and that's worth the effort.
Oh, absolutely. And the idea that we couldn't, I was screaming, which is probably how I got the job. When they changed the definition of side effects, that was the ultimate. It's so preposterous what we lived through, but you never wavered. So thank you so much for doing this. And we're going to pray for your wife, really, as we do for all of the people who were taken advantage of by their own good nature and good character. So thank you once again. Really, the book is absolutely fantastic. Vaccine Mafia. He is Dr. Helmut Sterz. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, John, for giving me a chance to discuss with you.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Make money, smoke cigars, and live free on The Sean Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.